A little bit about myself. I'm an engineer by training. I studied right here at U of T. I have always had a passion for developing technology for good. And so right out of the gate, I joined a very innovative tech startup called Morgan Solar, where we had the world's most efficient solar panels. And at that moment, I felt like I could make the biggest difference in the world by developing the best technology in the world. So here it was about energy. That was an 8-year journey where I realized that's not all there is to the solution. So I started off on the technology side. I spent 5 years in China. Basically every 6 months I was setting up the supply chain of the company, and during that period we'd seen immense growth. We got financing from the likes of like Saudi Aramco. So as an early employee, we raised in the realm of $60 to $80 million in 4 or 5 years, and I was setting up massive production lines. And then we were still never selling as much as we thought. We thought we were going to change the world. So in my pursuit of asking all those questions, we met the cost targets, we met the quality targets, but still we were not changing the world. So I basically, I resigned because I was disparaged that I put so much effort into this technology. And then my CEO came back and said, how about you work on the sales side and understand kind of my challenges? And I said, okay, this is going to be a new challenge for me. I've been a technical guy throughout, but maybe I do have some business bones in me. So I shifted gears completely. I left the tech side of things and I moved over to the business, sales, and deployment side of things. And the lesson I learned there was it's not all about the product, it's the product market fit and timing. If you're off the market in terms of timing and you have the best product, it doesn't matter. And if you have the right timing and the wrong product, it may not matter either. So that was a really, really important lesson to me that I've kept to my core in everything that I do. It's the importance of timing. And then after I was, I had that realization, I started dabbling in entrepreneurship a little bit myself. I've always had a vision of what I wanted to do. I'll get into kind of what motivated that. But I started indulging with tech startups that were developing technology for good. So some of them were developing robotics for kids with cerebral palsy, some of the best kind of 3D printing companies. So these were entrepreneurs that were having scale-up challenges. They were at the growth stage, and they didn't know how to set up manufacturing, quality, et cetera. And I'm like, I know how to do that. So I started moonlighting for these entrepreneurs, and that grew to be a pretty decent moonlighting business. And it was pure consulting. I still had my day job, and I roped in my ex-boss, who's now my business partner as well, Phil, into doing that. Now that gave me some means to do something. So this is where the story of Able Innovations comes together. So one thing that I've been really personally aligned to is the plight of our older adults. So my mom works in long-term care. When we moved to Canada in 2001, she left her profession. She used to be a teacher. Like many people, she became a housekeeper in long-term care and has grown through the ranks. But I've seen her struggle when it comes to providing care for older adults. I've seen older adults struggle, and the predicament was just terrible. The experience of the caregivers is really bad. My mom's gotten injured lifting and moving people. For the older adults, it's really undignified how they're treated. So I'm like, I want to do something in this space. I also don't think a lot of people my age have the privilege of seeing how big the market opportunity is as well. So it gave me something to really chase after. And I'd literally been thinking about what I can do with technology for older adults for many, many, many years. So that was a synthesis behind why I started Able Innovations. And sometime around 2017, 2018, I had the idea that maybe I need to use my background in robotics, and try to automate highly labor-intensive tasks for frontline staff. What that will do is it will make the experience far more superior for the caregiver, so they can be more empathetic towards the resident or the patients. And for the patients and residents, they can have a much more dignified experience. It felt like a win-win. And when you're looking at the future trends, unless there's a mass extinction event, we are all aging at a very rapid pace as a society. Hopefully we don't get to where Japan is, but that's an example of the type of society those are the trends that we're following. And I felt that automation and robotics has a really important part to play. It's not a space that a lot of I guess, innovation-minded companies and the big incumbents are really looking at. So I thought this could be my space to innovate. And for lack of better words, it's not a very sexy industry, moving older adults, right? So, but it's an underserved space. So that's where my journey behind Able Innovation started. Bootstrap for the first 2 years, literally built prototypes out of like things I got out of Home Depot. This is while I was consulting. Grew the team to 10, 12 people just by bootstrapping it, had a proof of concept. And I started engaging with just like-minded individuals. The number one lesson in business, this is what my first investor told me, Jay, don't worry about the term, just do business with good people. And that's one principle that I've always like stayed true to. So along the journey, I was really lucky to meet with fantastic individuals that are now some of my biggest backers. It wasn't that I was trying to force an investment. They became supporters of what I was doing. And like lo and behold, now they funded us in the multi-million dollars to get to where we are today. But it was because we shared a genuine common vision. So to get into kind of what we're doing at Able Innovations here, and we can keep this interactive. If anybody has any questions, just stop me, right? So as I alluded to, we're looking at automating some of the most labor-intensive tasks in healthcare. So our flagship technology is the Alta. It lets one person physically move somebody. Right now we're in hospitals. Move somebody in a hospital. Say you've had a procedure, you are unconscious. You need a team of 6 to 8 nurses to physically move you. Oh, thank you so much. To physically move you. With our technology, one person can do that. Now that we're talking about staff shortages, backlogs of procedures, our technology has a really neat role it can play in helping healthcare facilities kind of get out of the logjam that they're in. I won't get too much into the product, but the most important thing is it is safer than how things are done today. It's more efficient and it's more dignified. And with those 3 kind of key tenets, we are able to really provide a lot of value to healthcare facilities. I just wanted to give a quick visual on how the technology works. A lot of people look at this and say, oh, it's just a smart bed. I assure you there's a lot more going on. But we try really hard to make it look easy for the nurses. But to get to this iteration of technology, it's taken close to $10 million in research and development to get to this point. Because we're handling the most precious asset there is, which is humans. There's a lot of intelligence that goes into all kind of navigating all the variables that are thrown at you in a healthcare setting. And I'm pretty proud to I'm pretty proud to kind of disclose that now we're launching across Canada. We'll be releasing it in the news in the next 2 to 3 weeks. But it's been a really nice journey. And now I'll kind of go back and forth in my story. So while the video plays, I met Mahindra back in 2020 when I applied to TyQuest. And I met Jay as well. I didn't even make it past the selection process. But I was really persistent in asking for feedback. And that's where Mahindra was like, he believed in me as a person, and that was a great vote of confidence. Because when you're applying to all these competitions, sometimes as an entrepreneur, you feel like you're doing something wrong if you don't make it far, or you're taught a lot that it's all about the pitch. But as I'm coming out the other side, I'm realizing it's just about staying genuine. A lot of these things don't matter. It's selling your product. Like at the end of the day, you have to sell a product that the market wants. And that's what business is about, not about how well your pitch is perceived or if you make it through to competitions or not. So I've really that mindset has changed. But what I've really gained from the Thai community is that principle of do business with good people. I have had the opportunity, even though we didn't win, Mahindra sponsored us to go to San Francisco to meet with all the other charter members. That was eye-opening to me because that was my first time in San Francisco. It opened up my mindset. Then the next year I applied. Didn't get too far either. Then I applied last year and we did win, which was really, really exciting. Thank you. But it speaks to but the value is not winning. The value is the journey. The value is the network. And I can't be more grateful for a more supportive group who are really invested in your success. And I keep on asking, what can I do to give back? Because the community has given so much to me in terms of introductions, whether it's to investors, healthcare facilities. Upasna, you're always looking out for us. Jay's always looking out for us. So it's been a really good journey for me to get to here. I guess I'm happy to share any other stories you guys would like to hear, but yeah. Sorry?
Did you come to Boston with us?
I did. That was pretty.
First partnership. We just started off with them. How was that?
You're right. It was, I mean, some of the, I forget the individual's name from Panera, but his speech was,
His speech was incredible.
it was one of the most impactful speeches I've ever heard. And he's talking about his journey as an entrepreneur and family, the importance of storytelling, and his very personal story with his daughter. But no, Boston was a very, it was a close-knit group of very high-quality individuals who had achieved a lot. There was a CNN, I forget his name, Deepak Chopra? Yeah, Deepak Chopra was speaking, and so you're just rubbing shoulders with these guys who are just the movers and shakers in the world, but they're all very humble, they're all very approachable, and that was super gratifying to be at a level playing field with those individuals and to share their thoughts, share their confidence. And for me, it was gratifying to see the level of camaraderie there was, because nobody has an ego when they're there, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that. It's like, hey, what are your challenges? How can I help you? That's not just true for Boston, that was true for any Thai chapter that you go to, especially here in Toronto too, I would say. I think we have a really nice close-knit group.
Perfect. No, thanks. I have a question for Jayiesh. You just mentioned you found a niche in the market. There is a gap, and everybody's aging. It's a fact.
Yeah.
It's an irreversible fact. Everybody is, and it was not very cool or hip industry. What took you? What was the conviction you thought this is the gap I need to address?
I mean, I kept on asking why not, like 100 different ways to 100 different people, and nobody really had an answer that was good enough. So I'll tell you the real personal story of what it was. I'd gotten married. We bought our first place, so we had a mortgage, and I wasn't happy. And I'm telling my wife, I want to do this business. And she's like, Jay, one day we're going to have kids. So either do it now or never do it. So the next day I quit my job. Like, so it took that dream, like it was going to go away. My dream was going to go away. So that's when I'm like, I have to take out all the guardrails and pursue this with my full effort. So I left myself with no safety net. Like if this didn't succeed, I couldn't pay my mortgage. So I should remortgage my house. I wouldn't recommend everybody do that, but like I paid that back. But no.
That's a big thing.
Yes. But no, yeah, it took a big risk and a kind of existential personal moment to go after the space. It was also the conviction that a lot of these people follow, right? Like investors follow. I mean, we are the original AI, Able Innovations. No. But like there's trends, right? Like there's trends in the market. I think it's really important to be on the leading edge. Yeah. If you're too late, you're not going to benefit. Yeah. So that was, and for me, the broader market trend is we're aging, staff shortages are coming. Yeah. I believe that this space is going to be one that will require a lot of innovation. And I had a 10-year hypothesis where I thought in 10 years, the number of individuals over 65 is going to double. But unfortunately, COVID happened. And it shook the healthcare system in a way that the rearrangement is more favorable to our company. And it accelerated our path to market, essentially. So we are finding it much easier to be able to pitch our technology sooner than we ourselves anticipated, and people kind of instantly get the value and without us needing to explain a lot. It's not been typical. Yeah, it's been very atypical. Like first 2 million was bootstrapping. So like I took every dollar we earned out of consulting, I leveraged it 4 times with government grants. And that was my first $2 million in without any investor dollars. So that at that point, I had a proof of concept that I could get physicians behind. So hospitals, customers saying, hey, this is kind of cool. Before it was, just animation. So then at that point, I was lucky enough to meet a few individuals. These are not individuals that you could pitch to on a VC kind of. They're individuals that you just happen to meet. They are behind the scenes, large family offices that really see the genuineness in somebody and they'll approach. So, and I was lucky enough to meet a few key individuals who were ready to fund us for that next step, which is, around that same time, one thing I'll say is COVID happened too. So as I was raising my first round, COVID happened. Everybody was building a UV robot on a Roomba, and we were like, is there even a market? And it was around that time it felt really dire, and what's going to happen with hospitals? Nobody's even able to go in. Like they're not moving people. What's happening? Funding was all over the place. It was around that time a couple of folks, some of them are like chief physicians in hospitals. They're like, no, this is going to be a really important product. So they doubled down. But it was really much more they trusted me personally more than my business, for sure. That was the bigger factor, and they tell me that to the days. Like, we trusted you, Jay, and your ethics, and we wanted to back that because the business could go any which way. You could pivot, you could change course, but there's institutional investment out there that I think we may be better candidates for now that we have data. Yeah.
Just to back that, what does
So in terms of the way I explain competition is like, what was the competition for cars in the days of horse carriages, right? It's a different category. So the competition is like low friction bed sheets. That's how they're moving people. Or you have these like cranes that they lift people with. So the competition is just so unfavorable right now. We come with a different set. Like, we're moving costs from like low capital equipment costs, but high operational, like high labor costs, and we're saying invest in capital, save the backs of your nurses. So it's a bit of a different shift, but it's a pure automation play, and there's no incumbents in this space at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's no competition?
There's no direct competition. Like, there's nobody doing exactly what we are doing in the method that we are doing it. There's other categories in patient transfers that exist. And I'll say, like, yeah, Anil, and it's just really funny to see our worlds collide after so long, because we've been personal friends, but now our kind of professional lives are also colliding. Yeah. As engineers, we need to have product focus. And we already know what we do in version 4.0, for example, but it's really important we already have a product that is providing value today. And the goal is to make sure you work out all the kinks with what we have right now. We definitely know what we can do. We have a bigger vision. Like, our vision is to automate patient logistics. So think about these devices that are able to you have an Amazon warehouse that you're picking up assets and then delivering them. We're thinking about that with healthcare, for example. So that would be a version 2, 3.0.
Maybe you
Yeah.
can.
Also, to your point, like, investors will say how many hospitals, how many numbers, but it's about the quality of each sale, honestly, because we've had offers to sell at like one unit at a small hospital all over the place. People are happy to donate these all over the place. But we've been very selective in going after each opportunity that we have can buy 10 to 15 times. So this 1 million could be 15 million in 2 years. And we had to stay true to what is our selection criteria. All of these opportunities have to be significantly big enough. In terms of breaking down these barriers, again, it's been like, we don't have a sales force. Like this, I find myself here because the market pulled some of us. We had literally, I'll give you 2 examples. One was, there was a small news article about us, and then I started getting these long messages on Contact Us at Able Innovation saying, this is the story of my mom. You don't know how undignified this is. I would love to donate. And I thought I was being scammed. But I responded to a couple of these. And lo and behold, like, these families gave $1 million to the hospital to buy more of our stuff.
Wow.
So that's just one example. Another one was a safety inspector out of Vancouver Coastal, which is one of the largest health systems in Vancouver. Is like, we've been following you. I'd love to learn more. They bought it. Another one was a friend of a nurse, like a chief nursing officer, who said, my CNO said really good things. So these were all unusual ways. If, in fact, it's just like hiring people. You can apply, you can go through the usual routes, but it's very hard to get in. It's always through these unusual routes, but it's based on just succeeding with really focusing on the small group of clients that you have, and that's our mentality. Is we'll pick across 6 sites, but we've basically employed one person for each of those sites to make sure we take care of that, and then each file can grow tremendously in the future. That's our hypothesis, at least.
I think so. That's the real value of open mic nights.
Right. No, we do, and we have like a very well fleshed out like sales process, and now we're investing in marketing as well, and we're kind of we were making that more sustainable. But we found ourselves in this situation at the end of last year, where a lot of these events, call it fortunate events, were happening. We can't depend on that to continue.
Because that
Yeah.
takes a lot of time.
That's not a sustainable way.
Exactly, yeah.
No, and oddly enough for us, it was in 3-4 months. Like, we had multiple customers knocking on our door. So we went out, we put a little bit of media out, honestly, and people responded. That was, I'm making it sound overly simplistic. It was a bit more than that. But now to expand, like, we are taking a strategic geographical view on things. So like, we sold Nova Scotia, the province bought from us. Now we're going to the province of New Brunswick and saying, you guys have this issue. So we are taking some more active leads as we're investing in geographies. But the principle stayed the same. Like, the early champions were there, and now we're building around those early champions because we believe our product can provide value basically to any hospital across North America. Yeah, I mean, one that like everybody's going to talk about is funding, right? It's an interesting funding landscape. It's really important to, it's not that you can't raise capital, it's raising the right type of capital. The last business I worked at, one of the stories I didn't share was, having a healthy cap table structure, healthy board. A lot of times when you raise capital in a rush or you don't make the right moves, get the wrong investors, you can really hurt your future prospects for growth. I think the market, there is capital out there, but the right type of capital is a bit harder these days. So we've had to get very creative. We've had to focus on non-dilutive side of things. So our relationships with a lot of corporate banks have actually strengthened as a result of that. While we may not be a prime candidate, we've been able to land some pretty big financing deals with, and we are going to talk to ICICI as well. But that's one example of a challenge is diversification. Like you can't just say, hey, investors are going to give me $10 million next year. You got to have a really concrete plan. This is how much we're getting from sales, from financing, and you just spread out the risk a little bit more. That's been challenge one. Challenge two, it's about talent, I would say. A startup is not for everyone. We've had a lot of people who are aligned with the mission, which is, we're doing something that's very clear to see what the value to humans, but a lot of people may not be, but it's about finding the right mindset that somebody who's really able to withstand the grind. I think 2020 to 2022, there's a lot of discussions around like the big tech giants that kind of maybe spoiled a class of a candidate of new employees that we were seeing, and we were really kind of feeling a bit at a loss, like nobody's working as hard as we used to. Everybody expected things like overtime. So building that team and culture was super important. We took a really big hard look, and even though things are going well, we were like, we're going to change culture drastically. We let go of a bunch of people, replace them with like-minded individuals. So team and culture is always, I wouldn't say a challenge, but it's always a work in progress and something that we don't ignore whatsoever. The third one I'd just say is like managing politics. I'm understanding the importance of industrial policy and the role government plays, especially in my industry. It's very, very sensitive. You talk about Ministry of Health, federal government, you talk about FDA, Health Canada, tariffs, all of that is directly applicable to us. So it's navigating those. I'm trying to be a bit more active in engaging with stakeholders, going straight to policymakers. So those are, I hope that answered your question, yeah. We want to be immediately seen as a lower liability option because this is a big risk, like moving people get injured, people get dropped. Unfortunately, people also die from this. There's case studies, and in the US, it's a well understood area of liability. We've really focused on intelligence. Like our device has, like, when people see this, they're like, wow, I cannot mess up. Even if I press the wrong button, the device is designed with the nurse in mind. And we've engaged nurses for years to get it to that point where somebody can just go untrained and move a person. So, I mean, there's always risk and liability we make sure we're on top of. We keep a risk registrar, all of that. That can never be fully ignored. But the method that we are doing it is inherently safer than somebody physically moving and a team of people moving. And if even one person is out of sync, the patient can fall through the gap and hurt their head. Right? Yeah, in healthcare, to change momentum is incredibly, incredibly difficult, even if things make sense, because people are so exhausted, right? Like, are they going to, they're just trying to work for the next minute. Like, they're so inundated with work. It's us being there, meeting them where it's at. So if they can't get trained today, okay, how about lunch tomorrow? How about we take you out for coffee? We've taken we're working with them, and that builds mutual trust and kind of championship of our technology. Yeah. No, I really appreciate that question. So the question is around how, as an early stage company, when you may not be the best candidate for like investment, equity investment, how do you stretch runway? And I would consult, I would find clients, and it was very much to feed Able. I went after the easiest grants to get initially, which were hiring grants. I also treated some of these government agencies like investors. So the first money we got was NRC IRAP. IRAP usually funds later stage companies, but I funded the ITA enough that 3 days before Christmas, he calls me saying, Jay, if you can get me a 20-page proposal in 2 days, and you can show me 50,000 in a bank, I'll give you 50,000. And I'm like, wow, I can hire my first employees. That was my story behind why I mortgaged my place, because he wanted to see money in a bank. But it's being there for those opportunities, and even treating government agencies sometimes as investors, because they are providing you capital. But it's a bit of a delicate game, because a lot of times these grants can, if you really get obsessed with them, they can make you zig and zag, and then you forget what your mission is. So we try to be as linear as possible and find grants that can support us in our mission that way. But we had a pretty strong understanding of this landscape based on my past company. So I had a bit of a leg up. I was in a startup that grew from 10 people to 100. So I had some relationships when it came to these government programs that I really did leverage when I started the company. Undercapitalization is a significant risk if you don't service your client enough. It's a big risk, because a lot of times in my space, there's a lot of stories of new flashy med tech companies coming up with something game changing, and then you don't hear about it ever again, and that's a risk. And the way you mitigate that is really focusing on the other side of business, which is success and service. So the way we're mitigating that is we brought in some of the best of the world, like people. So Stryker is the biggest. It's a $200 billion company. We've literally brought in the guys who used to lead their patient transfer division as advisors. They've retired out of Stryker to make sure that we don't make those mistakes again. There's a lot of experiential learning there. So that's been one way we've mitigated that risk. Another risk, I think, I can maybe only think of two in terms of our market is the regulatory risk that's out of our control. Really, we feel helpless if things like tariffs happen. It can, like, we're in the discussions with the largest health system in the US, and then that gets slowed down, paused, you lose all momentum. So you invest a lot of time in each sale. It's important, though, to always have multiple irons in the fire, so to speak. So we've had other clients that we could prioritize instead, but we never want to dilute efforts. We focus on very few accounts, and my personality is I focus on very few people in terms of even investors, and that's been our formula for success. But those are the two I can think of. Like when I started the business, people, 18, 19, people were like, hey, we're already paying insurance, even though the business guys were like, even if these guys are getting injured, they're getting injured at a rate that I can sustain, and I'm paying my premiums for it. So why would I pay extra for your equipment? Simple business example, but I'm like, these trends are just not sustainable. You're going to see more injuries in 10 years. So I'm going to continue to go at it. But then very quickly COVID happened, and that changed, where right now you don't have people to move people. So at Toronto General, which is the busiest CT scan, like somebody comes in on a stretcher and on an evening shift, there's only one small nurse typically who has to move that person from the stretcher to the CT scan table. She's going to spend 20, 30 minutes to get somebody else to help them. You could have done another scan. So my business case is you can get more money for more scans, quite simply, if you try out our technology. So we have to alter our pitch depending. For nurses, it's sustainability, it's keeping their profession longer. For the budgetary guys, it's throughput, it's potentially more revenue, lower risk, depending on whichever department they're from. There's a very different business case for each. Like we've talked to providers, it's just they're risk averse themselves. They want to see a lot of data. They don't jump on first principles. They will jump on data. And I like to give back. Like initially, Ty took the initiative to trust in me and say, hey, we really like this founder, and now it's like, how can I give back? How can I support? And that's infectious, right? So it's all about, as you guys promote, the sense of community that we have here.
Thank you so much. It was incredible.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Upasana. Thank you.